entertaining videos. Legs and rock fire, you know they kicking it for show. So sit back and enjoy yourself and like the video.
So is Steph Curry actually a better basketball player than LeBron James right now? Or maybe even all time? It's a debate you hear everywhere.
It really is. Constantly.
And that's exactly what we're going to dive into. We've got a great mix of sources you sent in, some YouTube deep dives, an NBA news piece, even a pretty heated Reddit thread.
Yeah.
We're going to try and unpack it all.
Definitely. So whether you're solid on your take already or maybe just trying to get a better handle on all the different arguments, this should help. Our mission here is really to get past the hot takes and pull out the key points, maybe find some surprising angles.
Okay, let's jump right in. The big obvious thing first, championships. Both Steph and LeBron, they each have 4 rings.
4 apiece. That's the baseline, yeah. Can't argue with that hardware.
But here's where it gets interesting. Steph won all 4 with the same team, the Warriors. And then you look at the finals when they actually played against each other.
Head-to-head, yeah.
Curry actually won 3 of those 5 final series against LeBron's teams. LeBron lost 6 finals overall, and 3 were against Curry.
That head-to-head record in the finals is definitely a point people bring up for Curry, though LeBron's gotten there more times, obviously.
True. More appearances.
And that point about Curry staying with one franchise, for some, that carries a certain weight. Building and rebuilding with the same core group, leading different versions of that team to the top. It's a different kind of legacy path than LeBron moving teams.
Absolutely. It speaks to a different kind of leadership, maybe. Okay, let's switch gears. Scoring efficiency. This is where Curry's numbers are just kind of nuts.
They really are something else.
His career true shooter percentage is 62.5%. And, for anyone maybe not super familiar, true shooting combines 2s, 3s, free throws. It's a really good measure of overall scoring efficiency.
And the key thing, one source, Rewind, pointed out, is that he does this while taking much harder shots than most guys.
Exactly. And remember that 2016 season, just unbelievable. He hit 402 threes.
Broke his own record by a mile.
Yeah. And his true shooting percentage that year was almost 67%. A record for a scoring champ. That volume and that efficiency. It's just wild.
It really is. And it kind of forced the league to rethink everything offensively.
Yeah.
His scoring gravity, his efficiency, it puts so much pressure on the defense.
Yeah.
Which leads perfectly into the next point, right? His overall impact on the game itself.
This is huge. The way the game looks now versus before Curry really exploded, totally different.
Night and day.
Teams used to take, maybe 23 threes a game? Now it's way over 30, easily.
That rewind piece directly links that shift to Curry's influence. It argues his success basically forced the league to adapt.
And his mere presence on the floor, they say it just warps defenses, pulls defenders way out, creates space for everyone else.
Like offense is defense almost. Puts incredible pressure on the other team just to keep up. Plus, you look at his plus-minus numbers over, the last decade, consistently elite.
Yeah, his impact goes way beyond just his own points.
And it's not just the NBA, right? His style has trickled all the way down. Youth basketball, college. Everyone wants to shoot the 3 now, move off the ball like him. He didn't just play the game. He fundamentally changed how it's played.
Right. And speaking of helping others, what about making teammates better? That's a classic debate point.
Always comes up with the greats.
The rewind analysis points to guys like Jordan Poole, Andrew Wiggins, even Draymond Green. It suggests they really thrived playing off Curry, benefiting from the attention he draws.
Wiggins is a key example, often cited there, yeah. His role in production seemed to really click with the Warriors.
And the counter-argument you sometimes hear, though it's debatable, is that some stars who teamed up with LeBron, maybe like Bosh or Wade later on, or Kevin Love, saw their individual numbers dip a bit.
It's always complex, isn't it? Team dynamics, roles changing, and that Reddit thread we looked at really got into this too, didn't it? Like, who's carrying who? Is Curry carrying a weaker Warriors team now versus LeBron having AD?
Exactly. It shows how subjective that whole carrying idea is. Different situations, different supporting tasks.
Very different contexts.
But going back to Curry's value to his team, rewind really hammered this home. Remember the 2020 season when Curry was out most of the year?
Oh, yeah. Disaster for the Warriors.
They won 15 games, 15 and 50. Then 2 years later, he's back, healthy, leading them.
And they win the championship, 2022.
That contrast is pretty stark. It really highlights how crucial he is to that specific Warrior system and their success.
It's a powerful data point for his supporters, no doubt. Shows how the whole team structure is kind of built around his unique talents.
Okay, so let's get into what people around the league, players, coaches, analysts are saying. That Trex Productions YouTube video had a ton of this stuff.
Yeah, lots of different voices in that one.
Some flat out calling him the greatest shooter the game has ever seen, which is hard to argue with, honestly.
Pretty much the consensus view on his shooting, yeah.
And some saying he belongs in the GOAT conversation, period. Even drawing comparisons to Michael Jordan, calling Curry a modern MJ.
That's a heavy comparison. What was the reasoning there?
Part of it was just the cultural impact, seeing kids switch from wearing Jordan's 23 to Curry's 30, and just the excitement, the awe his playing style creates, that feeling that something amazing could happen any second.
That transcendence factor. It's not just stats, it's how the player makes you feel watching them.
Even Steve Kerr, his coach, made a comparison. He said Jordan revolutionized the aerial game, the above-the-rim dominance.
While Curry revolutionized shooting. And movement without the ball.
Exactly. And the impact on young players. This was interesting. Kids might know they can't jump like MJ, but shooting like Steph, that feels achievable. Like, if you work hard enough.
That's a great point. It kind of democratizes that path to greatness, in a way.
Yeah.
Skill over just pure physical gifts.
The praise in that video just kept coming. Most impactful player because of his gravity on and off ball. How the league's obsession with the three ball, for better or worse, is largely down to him.
For better or worse is right. Some people definitely miss the old style of play.
They talked about his incredible conditioning, understanding angles, making shots from anywhere off balance. The babyface assassin nickname came up, that competitive fire underneath the smile.
He definitely has that edge.
One former player actually ranked him second all-time, behind only Magic Johnson, citing the stats, the rings, and get this, the massive increase in the Warriors' team value since he arrived.
Wow, second all time. That's bold. Bringing in the franchise value was an interesting sort of business of basketball metric, too.
He's just called a joy to watch, setting the standard for point guard since, 2011. There was that story about his Davidson run, how underestimated he was initially.
The Cinderella story element.
And the relentless movement, always running, cutting, relocating, making him hell to guard. Remember the stories about Della Vedova?
Oh, yeah. Delhi practically needing an IV after guarding him in the finals. It just shows the insane physical toll of trying to stick with Curry for 48 minutes.
Totally. And they mentioned guarding him is different than guarding other elite guards like Kyrie or Dame, because so much of Curry's danger is when he doesn't have the ball.
That off-ball movement is key. Constant vigilance required.
Even Kobe Bryant apparently talked about Curry's calmness being deadly. It wasn't detachment, it was focus. And apparently he's got some subtle trash talk game too.
You hear whispers about that. Adds another layer to the persona.
The video traced his evolution too. How early on some thought he was too thin, maybe couldn't handle physical defense, especially from European guards.
Right, the ankle injuries early in his career fed into that narrative too.
But then you see how his handle got tighter, how much stronger he got, how he developed ways to score in crunch time, not just shooting threes. And people being amazed when he kept breaking his own three-point records. How was that even possible?
That feeling during the Warriors' peak. That they were just unguardable when he got going.
And the work ethic stories. Crazy workouts that even other NBA players supposedly struggle to finish.
Those stories are legendary. It really busts the myth that it's just natural talent. Clearly, there's an insane amount of work behind it.
Right. And it proves you don't need Jordan-level athleticism if you have that skill, that IQ, that work ethic. The narrative around him being an all-time great playoff performer is pretty solid now, too.
He's delivered on the biggest stages. Multiple times.
And just the respect he gets beyond basketball. He can carry a team offensively, breaking the all-time three-point record, obviously huge. The difficulty of the shots he makes, off the dribble, step backs from 30-plus feet, it's just different.
The degree of difficulty is off the charts consistently.
But defenses have to pick him up practically at half court. It creates chaos. He's gotten noticeably stronger, too, especially since around 2020. Harder to knock him off his spot.
That strength aspect is important. Helps him fight through screens, finish through contact.
The connection with Draymond Green, telepathy sometimes on offense. Those dribble handoffs, the screens.
It's poetry in motion when they're clicking.
And just those highlight plays, the shimmy sidestep three against Atlanta. It just feels like every shot he takes could go in.
It really does. That's the Curry effect.
Defenders can never relax. Patrick Beverley apparently goes into super intense prep mode just for Curry matchups.
You have to. One lapse in concentration, and he burns you.
And think about all the open shots his teammates get because defenses are so focused on him. That's points on the board created just by his presence.
That gravity is maybe his most underrated but most impactful trait.
He's getting compared to MJ, Bird, Magic, Shaq, but in his own unique way. Even talked about how opponents initially underestimated him, the light-skinned dude comment.
Until they realized what they were dealing with.
Yeah, people saying he's on a different planet, an alien, that crazy near half-court heave where he still almost made it after getting fouled.
Unreal moments.
It's just relentless running, high motor. But the bottom line from almost everyone, greatest shooter ever, making impossible shots look easy.
That seems undeniable at this point.
And comparing his blend of humility and confidence to Tim Duncan, saying flat out, the Warriors dynasty, it's because of him.
It's a compelling collection of praise and anecdotes, really paints a picture of a truly unique, transformative talent.
Okay, so now let's bring in a really specific expert take. Bobby Marks, ESPN analyst, former NBA exec.
Yeah, knows his stuff. Respected voice.
Back in November 2024, Sport by Dibble reported him saying something pretty direct. He said he thinks Steph Curry is the second best player of all time.
Wow. Second. Ahead of LeBron.
Ahead of LeBron, behind only Michael Jordan. That was his ranking.
Okay, that's a huge statement. What was his reasoning?
He mentioned Curry's instinct, that feeling that every shot is going in, just the sheer offensive threat he poses. And Marks predicted Curry still had like 3 or 4 more years of prime play left in him.
Interesting. So focusing heavily on that offensive peak and impact and projecting it forward, that's a significant endorsement from someone with his background.
Definitely makes you pause. But as you'd expect, not everyone's on board with that idea, or even the idea that Curry's necessarily better than LeBron right now.
Right, because these things are always debated.
We dove into a Reddit thread on RNBA, and it was basically questioning this whole idea of a consensus that Curry had overtaken LeBron, especially looking at the 2023-24 season stats.
Ah, the stats comparison always fuels the fire.
The original poster laid it out. LeBron actually had better numbers in points, rebounds, assists that season, and even a slightly higher true shooting percentage, 63% for LeBron, about 61.6% for Curry.
Okay, so purely based on those numbers for that specific season, LeBron looks better on paper. It definitely complicates the narrative Marks was presenting.
Exactly. The Reddit poster argued LeBron was better right now, meaning that season, because of, more efficient scoring overall, better playmaking, still rebounding and defending well, and doing it even when he looked tired late in games.
So valuing the all-around contribution and consistency over maybe the peak shooting potential.
Yeah, and they seemed a bit skeptical about Curry always being able to shoot the lights out compared to LeBron's reliable production across the board. They even linked to some rankings from The Ringer, ESPN, Bleacher Report around that time.
What did those show? A mix.
A mix, yeah. Curry was higher on some, LeBron on others, no clear universal agreement, which kind of undermines the idea of a consensus.
Right. It just shows different outlets, different analysts weigh things differently.
Yeah.
There's rarely one single answer everyone agrees on in these rankings.
And the comments on that Reddit thread, oh man, people were really going at it. Lots of disagreement with the idea that Curry was definitively better.
I can imagine. Fan debates get passionate.
People brought up the team situations again. Curry carrying a weaker Warriors team versus LeBron having Anthony Davis. Then others argued about what carrying even means, or that AD carries the Lakers sometimes too.
The eternal supporting cast debate. Always a factor.
Some questioned if Curry could lead a team to the playoffs in the West versus maybe having an easier path in the East. And quite a few people were pretty dismissive of ESPN rankings in general, saying they don't always reflect real basketball understanding.
Yeah, there's often skepticism about mainstream media rankings among hardcore fans online. That Reddit discussion sounds like a good reality check. Lots of differing opinions out there.
Totally. They were debating the word consensus itself, like clearly there isn't one if we're all arguing about it right here. Some admitted Curry was ranked higher on certain lists, but still question if that ranking was actually right.
So, acknowledging the data point, but challenging its validity.
Curry's off-ball movement and gravity came up again as reasons for his high value, even if the back score numbers weren't always better. But a lot of people landed on Hill. They're both just in that top tier right now, same level.
That feels like a reasonable take for many. Two legends still playing at an incredibly high level.
Some even threw other names in, like maybe Tatum or Brunson should be ranked above Curry by some measures. And one comment just flat out said, it has never been the case that Curry is better than LeBron, full stop.
Strong stance.
Someone else pointed out LeBron actually had a winning regular season head-to-head record against Curry at that point, too.
See, that Reddit thread perfectly illustrates how fluid these comparisons are. Depends on the season, the stat you value, the team context, recent performance. There's just no single easy answer.
Okay, last big piece here, that speak discussion. They tackled a really interesting hypothetical. What would another championship mean for each guy's legacy?
Ooh, yeah. That's where the legacy talk gets really intense.
The panel seemed to think a fifth ring for Curry, especially if he got Finals MVP, doing it in the LeBron era, with different versions of the Warriors team, often without another top-tier superstar, that it would force some very uncomfortable conversations.
Uncomfortable meaning Curry challenging LeBron's spot in the all-time rankings.
Exactly. Potentially surpassing LeBron's title count, adding it to his unanimous MVP. Could it push Curry into that MJ conversation for some, defining whose era it really was?
That's fascinating. The idea that one more ring for Curry could significantly shift his historical standing relative to LeBron because they played against each other so much.
The consensus on that panel was another title means more for Steph's legacy right now in terms of individual validation as the guy on his team.
And how did they view another potential title for LeBron? Say, if he won with Luka in Dallas.
That was seen a bit differently. The worry was maybe Luka would be seen as the main engine, raising questions if it counts the same way for the Joe Egg debate. You know, Jordan never won as the clear number 2.
The bus driver versus passenger argument, essentially, even though Lauren would still obviously be playing at a high level.
Right. They acknowledge LeBron's still amazing. It wouldn't just be Luka. But still, the perception might be different. However, they also said for LeBron at his age, with all his records, winning another one, maybe in LA, that's just unprecedented territory, maybe a complete game changer in terms of longevity and sustained greatness.
So for Steph, it potentially changes the head-to-head legacy comparison more directly. For LeBron, it pushes him into a league of his own regarding career length and sustained dominance.
That seemed to be the gist. Like, Steph winning more in the same era could bump LeBron down for some. They also contrasted LeBron joining different teams, sometimes already built, versus Curry reinventing himself within the same organization. Some saw Curry's path as slightly more impactful, maybe.
The narrative of sticking with one team versus building super teams elsewhere definitely plays into how people perceive their careers.
Though, obviously, LeBron passing Jordan in total rings would still be a massive milestone for his GOAT case.
Of course, 6 rings would be huge.
They also brought up Draymond Green, saying Curry's the most exciting player of the last 10 years. A description maybe not as often applied to LeBron. Plus, Curry's unique, unanimous MVP.
That unanimous MVP is still just such a unique data point. Nobody else has ever done it.
And how few smaller guards have truly been the best player on a title team. Isaiah Thomas was the main comparison. It just highlights how unusual Curry's success story is.
So the takeaway is, another ring for LeBron cements his longevity GOAT case, but another for Steph might fundamentally shake up the Curry versus LeBron historical debate even more.
That's kind of how it felt, yeah. Huge implications either way, but perhaps more disruptive to the current hierarchy if Steph gets number 5.
Wow, a lot to chew on there.
So wrapping this all up, you've heard the arguments: head-to-head, efficiency, changing the game, teammates, expert takes, fan debates, legacy implications, all from the sources you provided. It's clear there's no easy answer here.
Not at all. Steph Curry's impact, his shooting revolution, it's undeniable. He changed basketball, period.
And LeBron James? His sustained greatness, the stats, the rings, the longevity, his GOAT case is incredibly strong, and he's still adding to it.
It's just a fascinating comparison between two absolute icons who defined an era, but in very different ways.
Which brings us to our final thought for everyone listening. We've laid out all these points, considered all these angles, and both guys might still have more to accomplish. So what single factor do you think will ultimately be the most important in defining where Steph Curry and LeBron James finally land in NBA history?
That's the question to ponder. What will be the ultimate decider in the long run?
Definitely something to keep thinking about as the careers continue to unfold. We hope this deep dive gave you some new perspectives on this whole debate.